My family is from Memphis, and I was born in Bossier City because Dad was stationed there when he got back from the Second World War in the South Pacific. So it was just a pure accident, a lucky accident that I was born in Shreveport. I like to claim Louisiana because it has sort of a cachet about it, to use a French word.
The whole darn town's in love with you, but here's the funny part, that you love me, girl, bless your foolish heart.
After the war was finally over, Dad farmed in Mississippi. We had a series of 3 farms in Mississippi until I was 12, and Dad had a heart attack and wasn't able to do the hard work that farming involves. So he moved us back to Memphis and went to law school at night, and finally knuckled under and joined the family law firm. We'd come from a family of lawyers and preachers. And there was a family law firm, still is, Winchester and Winchester in Memphis. And he sort of knuckled under and gave up the farming and towed the line and became a lawyer like everybody else in the family. And at that point, our financial fortunes at least looked up. In those days, that was just about the only thing that was on the radio in Mississippi was preachers and sort of primitive style country music. There was no black music on the radio. They just wouldn't have it. If you wanted to hear black music on the radio, you had to go to Memphis. And that's where I first started hearing rhythm and blues music, was in Memphis. But in Mississippi, it was all preachers, pretty much. And for that reason, to this day, I love good sermons. But you got to yell at me. You can't do the Billy Graham thing. You have to raise your voice at me to really get it across. I also got I was influenced a lot by secular music too, and the soul singers, the great soul singers. And I don't just mean the black soul singers, I mean white soul singers too, like George Jones and Merle Haggard and Lefty Frizzell, and those people are soul singers too. And I was influenced a lot by them. And then when I got to Quebec, they have their own soul singing tradition that comes from Edith Piaf and Jacques Brel, Charles Aznavour, and there's a whole gang of them that deliver their songs with that powerful intensity. Just one person, like little Edith Piaf, tiny little thing in front of a spotlight in a black dress and nothing else but that, you know, and just reaching the very back rows with this intensity. That's powerful stuff, and I would love to think that I'd been influenced by it.
Oh my, but you have a pretty face. Why you favor a girl that I knew. I imagine that she is still in Tennessee, boy, and by God, I should be there too.
One of the first, maybe the third or the fourth that I wrote was called The Brand New Tennessee Waltz. That was recorded, and that's been covered by a lot of different people. Everly Brothers and Ralph Stanley and Joan Baez and a whole bunch of people have cut that one. So it was an early success, I guess you'd say. But I don't write like that anymore. To me, it's very much in the style of someone who's just starting out. It's very stream of consciousness, very Bob Dylan-y kind of thing. I have sort of my own ideas what it means, but I'd be very surprised if someone, a listener, could really decipher what the heck the singer's talking about.
At the brand my New Tennessee walks, it's just no telling who will be there.
It was the situation I was in. I had always wanted to be a backup guitar player for rhythm and blues singers. I wanted to be Steve Cropper. That was really my ambition all along, to be a white boy playing black music. And I did that for a long time, and I kept getting, the bands that I was in kept getting cheated by the promoters in the little world where I was working in Quebec. And it finally just happened one too many times. We had to drive all the way back from Sept-Îles, Quebec, which is way the heck up the north shore of the St. Lawrence River. And we had to pool the quarters that we had in our pockets to get back to Montreal and buy gas. And I was so fed up with that that I decided that I would go play in restaurants. I would work as a solo act, and I would be able to stay in Montreal and wouldn't have to travel and live in hotels anymore, and I'd get paid every week. And that would be that. And I would just play the shadow of your smile for people, and I wouldn't have to worry. So I started doing that. And in the course of working as a solo act, I got a job at a coffee house. And where you were expected to write your own songs. These were folk people, folkies. And I had never had much contact with folkies before. In the South, we didn't really listen to a lot of folk music. We sort of thought they were communists. And with some justification, it turns out. But anyway, I was ready to cooperate, and so I started writing songs. And that's how that started. I really had no ambition to do that. It was just to please the people that I was playing for.
One of these days, I'm gonna take a vacation by a quiet and a peaceful shore, and I'll cool my feet in those crystal waters, and I won't have to work anymore, because my burden has got a little heavy until I can't stand up all alone. I must lay my head down on one strong shoulder, 'cause I can't stand up all alone.
After getting to Quebec, I sort of clung to being Southern, and I always have, with determination. It's a sort of part of my identity. I insisted on saying y'all to everybody. I would make my cornbread in a cast iron skillet once or twice a week. I don't care if anybody else in my family ate it. I had to have it. Beans and cornbread are what they're going to serve in heaven, as far as I'm concerned. I just clung to these things. Country music, the whole thing. It was sort of a security blanket for me. I guess it's not surprising, if I played psychologist here for a second, that someone in my situation would do that. But I did. At the same time as I was assimilating into the Canadian culture, I found that I liked it there. I liked living in Quebec very much. I found the people to be very live and let live, very decent, kind-hearted people. So I think this happens with a lot of immigrants. They do cling to the country that they come from, and yet they know that they have to assimilate. It's an odd situation to be in. It is. I think many people would agree that the germ of rock and roll was from the South. Of course, New York and Philadelphia contributed a lot, and the whole country contributed. California, everybody contributed. But I think the basis of it, the blend of black and white, that happened in the South. And the people in the band were certainly aware enough that loved rock and roll, and they knew that, and they wanted to sound Southern. There's no question about it. But what the band represented to me, even more than the South, was a return. You have to take the band in context. What was happening around the band was 30-minute guitar solos by people who were out of their minds on drugs. Music was just, going off in all directions with no sense being made by anybody. I mean, even pop people were singing songs like Crystal Blue Persuasion and lyrics that just made no sense whatsoever. And in the middle of all this, the band came along and they were back to playing songs that had structure. You could understand the lyrics. They were a very conservative movement in rock and roll at that time. That's what they represented. They looked like you said, people from the Civil War. They were a return to sanity. That's what they represented, not necessarily such a Southern thing. It's just a, hey, let's just relax here and calm down a little bit, everybody. And let the guitar player have 8 or 12 bars, and then let's go back to playing the song. That's what they represented to me, for sure. And I for one, was glad to see it happen.
Every star from near and far was watching from above, watching 2 teenagers fall in love.
My goal always has been to write commercial pop songs. I never wanted to write artistic things. It's not something that I listen to myself. I'm not really a big art fan. I kind of like, commercial, I like Hollywood movies, and I like things that entertain me and amuse me. I'm not interested in really being enlightened. I feel like they're patronizing me a lot of times. So my goal was always to be on the hit parade, with really limited success in that direction, but that's all right. That's still my goal, is to write simple, clear, commercial music.
Yes, you know me. Girl, bless your foolish heart.